When we watch a game, we're like, okay, he dropped back and then he threw it, and it was either accurate or it was not. But for a quarterback and for a head coach, when they're looking at tape, there's a lot that goes into what was there that was not thrown, and we would never see that, and that's a big, big deal. So, for instance, JT O'Sullivan, who joins us now, you've coined it the turn down. Am I right, JT? Will you let everybody know? First of all, thank you for coming on. Let everybody know what a turn down is.
Mark, I thought for sure you were going to say you went to the School of Hard Knocks last night, but I appreciate you coming, hanging out, getting an hour of Trey Lance preseason footage going.
You got it, man. You got it. Wasting time, that is my MO. That's what I do.
The turn down is, I don't know if we can say that I coined it. I don't know where I picked it up from. I'm sure I hijacked it from somebody. But it essentially means that there is a play and there is an open, eligible receiver down the field that looks like it's tethered on time and in rhythm to the quarterback, and for whatever reason, the quarterback doesn't throw it. And it's one of those things that it's pretty rare, honestly, to see happen at all in the NFL, let alone happen multiple times, let alone potentially happen the first 3 snaps of a game. And so it just kind of was so eye-popping to me that I essentially was like, you know what, I'm going to do the whole game or the whole half of Trey Lance because I want to build the context about exactly what the hell, we're seeing here as far as turn downs and why people might be so upset, both fans and people probably in the building frustrated with some of the play.
Okay, so a turn down, I love that. That was really good. A turn down is an open throw that for whatever reason the quarterback does not throw. That's maybe a simplistic way of saying it. And then you said it's very rare that happens in the NFL at all. How many times did you see Trey Lance do an unnecessary turn down?
Well, I can think of the first 3 throws. The first throw potentially is like a half turn down, so it's like 2.5 in the first 3 plays. And then there were certainly more as the game went on. So you're looking at 5+-ish turn downs, and it's just it's a abnormally large example, especially in only a half of football. And I get it. You haven't played for a long time. I get it. You're coming back from an injury. But it's just one of those things when they're back to back, it almost feels like they're compounding a bigger issue.
And what would that issue be in your mind, JT?
Well, it's either he's being coached to be really, really cautious, or he doesn't have necessarily the capacity to let it go on time consistently. And it can be it can be both of those things. It can be one or the other. Sometimes I've been around guys that I would classify the game as too fast, where they don't necessarily see things as quickly as they happen in real time. And then I've been around some guys who are just like, you know what? I'm not taking any chances with this thing. I'll check it down and we can punt, and my stat sheet looks pretty good the next day. You turn on the film and you're like, geez, we should have scored 3 touchdowns in the first quarter, but we punted 4 times. So it's one of those things where, and unless you're really in the quarterback room, in the system, you don't really know for sure what's going on. It can be really confusing and muddy to try to make sense of it.
And the next part of that would be, how does it get corrected if you're somebody like Trey Lance who's in this battle right now for the backup spot, maybe to just be on the 49ers roster when the preseason ends? Like, how do you coach somebody out of that if they're in that mold?
I think you can. First of all, I want to say that I think you certainly can coach people to improve upon this. I think it comes from, the first part is the trust in the room. So by the play caller, the head coach, probably the play caller, the quarterback coach, to say it's okay to make mistakes, especially when you're under a significant microscope where people are like live tweeting your training camp stats. That doesn't make you feel like you're in a safe environment to make mistakes, in my opinion.
Right.
So you have to be in a safe environment where you feel like, hey, if I don't make a mistake, I'm not getting demoted during this 7-on-7 period. So building that confidence, but then having the confidence then to let it rip in practice, to then let it rip in these types of games. If you're ever going to let it rip, it's going to be in a preseason game. And so you want to see significant and substantial improvement immediately. I mean, like next series that he's out there, we want to see some improvement as far as letting these things rip on time where they're supposed to go consistently.
JT O'Sullivan, former Niners quarterback and now in front of the QB school, with us here on 95.7 The Game. Willard and Dibs with JD in for Dibs all week. Okay, so, yeah, JT, I got to tell you, these videos that I saw and that we were just discussing about the turndowns, it kind of helped me understand something else that Kyle Shanahan had said after the game. You remember the touchdown throw, which should have been picked. But Kyle talked about the play as if it was a good play. And when I first heard it, I'm like, why does he think that? But the way he said it was, he was like, look, the throw was there. He was a little late. It was a little inaccurate, but I was glad he threw it because I want Trey to play more like that. Your video helped me understand what Kyle was saying there. So what we're talking about is someone who is maybe hesitant to pull the trigger. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with what he said after the game, but if that's what he said, that certainly makes sense, especially on that play, because that play is a great example of, it's not an early read. You get through your read, it's kind of the backside post and kind of a red zone-ish thing where it comes into your vision, and it is there. And when he lets it go, it's maybe a half tick late, and then the ball drifts a little to the right, so that if it's a perfect throw, I think it probably splits those two defenders, and it's a great touchdown. It drifts a little bit on him. He's a little late, but yeah, the fact that he let it go, if you look at the rest of that game as just kind of an overall picture, that play is kind of out of context as far as letting things rip down the field out of structure. And so that stuff, absolutely. Kind of like the other play, I think it was down in the red zone area where they were in empty. There was like a double stick, and he ended up scrambling to the right, kind of making like a jump scissor kick throw back across his field to a spot over the ball. That type of play out of structure, in my opinion, why you draft a guy like that high, who's got this kind of athletic ability and creativity that you want to see, that's the type of stuff you want to see. Those two plays are Trey Lance creating, making more of the offense than just scheming up people in the run game.
And JT, I was going to ask you, and you kind of touched on a little bit there, just, there was a lot of pub of the breakdowns and the turndowns and the misses, but what, when you have watched Trey Lance, have you liked about his skill set or the potential that the 49ers saw in him to make him that number 3 pick?
I mean, I've always loved his athletic ability, the dual threat that I think everybody, Kyle Shanahan included, has seen the league evolve towards in that position. The guy has to be a playmaker and has to be able to kind of create out of structure, or if you're willing to run your quarterback. It certainly didn't work out health-wise last year for him, but I love that from the position. So that's the first part that I would say. The other part that I would say is, and I know it's hard, especially for y'all up there, because you guys are in it, and you're talking about this all the time, and it's really important to that fan base. But he's got to, at some point, you have to play quarterback. Like, for instance, anecdotally for me, and we're not anywhere in the same category with Trey Lance in my situation, but I had to go to NFL Europe twice and play. And when you play, there is an element of your game that evolves that can't evolve against the scout team or against, when you're running the scout team. And so there is this element that I really like from Trey Lance just in this game, small sample size, but he did get a little better as that game went on. He got a little bit more comfortable. He made a few more plays. Now, yeah, that happens. Everybody's going to get better when you have a rough start. But you want to be able to just kind of see that continued progress in his performance.
JT, I think that's kind of where people are, because the world watched the Raider game, and you're hearing a lot of people sort of give up as if Trey is now a lost cause. When you see some of the mistakes he's making, do you find them to be so far removed from NFL starter ability that it just, as they say, he doesn't have that it quality? Or do you find these things to be fixable and time might still make him a good player?
I'm never going to be the guy that puts an artificial ceiling on someone's ability to improve. I think that if you were to show me that film of his first half, that first quarter, and I were to not know what was invested draft capital-wise, I would say this player is going to have a hard time being on an NFL roster right now. Now, that's not reality, though. They have invested a significant amount of that capital into him. They are invested as an organization from the outside looking in his performance. And so, I think he can continue to develop. I think he's in a tough spot. He really is in a tough spot. And it's weird to say that because that roster is built to win now. You've had someone come in and, and Brock Purdy and show that they can win, play in a certain way. And he got, played so well last year. I think it almost makes everything a little bit harder for Trey when you see that kind of performance come in. So it might be somewhere else, but he absolutely has the skill set to be a quarterback in the NFL. It just didn't translate that first preseason game, and he's been so unfortunate playing-wise, time-wise, and health-wise.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch, and YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union.
Assuming he is not the backup quarterback and ends up with Sam Darnold, I mean, how much more difficult is it for him to continue to improve and stay ready as the 3? And because I think they're part of the discussion out here, JT, is he really battling to stay on the roster? And the question the 49ers are going to have is, Brandon Allen, who's used to being a backup and was a backup with Cincinnati, is he as the 3 better than Kerry and Trey, who won't get that developmental time if he is the 3? Like, how do you navigate all of that?
Well, I'm not in their front office to have to, but I would imagine that there's not a better place to be if you're looking to play in the NFL and not a starter than for the 49ers, who have proven over the course of the last few years that they're probably going to have some injury issues at the position. You're probably going to get an opportunity to play. And now you go from really the mindset of, when you're the 3rd overall pick, you're essentially guaranteed an opportunity with that organization. Well, his opportunity in reality might have come and gone. So now you're at changing your lane, changing your perspective to, hey, the next time I'm going to fight to stay on the roster, and the next time I get on the field, I'm not coming off. So that's kind of a different mindset. That's almost like a later round pick mindset, an undrafted free agent mindset, a more journeyman mindset versus a guy who is entitled top 3 pick. I'm going to get an opportunity. So, just the reality of your situation is adaptive, and it's changing, and it moves probably in a direction that Trey Lance doesn't like right now. But you've got to be able to be resilient enough to refocus and fine-tune your game so that when you get that opportunity, and I really do think that they've proven that they're going to play a lot of guys at the position. Don't come off the field the next time you get on.
JT O'Sullivan, former Niners quarterback, is with us, the QB School on social media. Great stuff. You mentioned the opportunity for Trey, and this is something I would love your perspective, because I hear fans go, well, he's only played 4 games. He's never had a chance. And my bet is Kyle Shanahan is thinking, no, I've been with him for 3 years. I see everything that he does. What's your perspective on that in terms of the opportunity that Trey has actually had?
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough. I will say this: I will be pre-order the book that eventually goes into what happened with that draft pick, because I'm fascinated to see, because so many different people are invested in different layers, and so I personally think it's still in Kyle Shanahan's best interest for Trey Lance to hit, and if it hits later, it might end up being a better story. For it will, kind of take that narrative away from the fact that maybe he can't develop or doesn't necessarily have the same capacity with quarterback development that he does with offensive architecture. And so I think they're invested with him. I've never believed kind of the thing that they're, don't know what they drafted. I think they know what they drafted. It's become a little bit unfortunate with outside circumstances, with injuries and other things and illnesses. But I think he absolutely can continue to get better and get that opportunity. I've just seen too many people in the league, take a step back to then reset and then get another opportunity. And there really is no other organization I would want to be in to be a backup quarterback, because you're going to play, you're going to win, you're going to get an opportunity to play meaningful games at the end of the year. They've proven they can win with dang near anybody playing quarterback. It's a great situation to be in. You just have to be tough enough mentally to battle through some of these rough spots. And they're rough spots. They really are. But that's part of playing the position at a high level.
All right, JT, I've saved this one because I really want to ask you this. Do you know off the top of your head, I've got your Football Reference page up right now. Do you know how many games you started in the NFL?
I'm going to say 8.
Okay, do you know how many Brock Purdy has started in the NFL?
8. Probably.
Okay, you have 2 correct answers. So, when people say, why are they sold on Brock Purdy on such a small sample size? Is 8 games actually that small of a sample?
I mean, it probably is. It's probably too small of a sample size, and we'll see what happens. I mean, the whole idea about Brock Purdy, I think, is going to be interesting to see how the league adjusts, because everybody knows that now they have time to game plan and adjust and see what kind of what he was bringing to the table, so to speak. And so I don't necessarily think 8 games is enough to make that determination, but I think you have to at least ride it out. So it's not really a choice.
Interesting answer. Yeah. Very good stuff. JT, man, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you always.
No problem. My pleasure, Mark, JD. Y'all take it easy.
All right, you too. JT O'Sullivan, the QB school, who has the same number of career starts as Brock Purdy in the league. Not the same record,
no,
but the same number of career starts.
I was trying to think 2-6?
Exactly right.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
2-6, all with the 49ers.